Hey y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and this is our WWE show for the week. Now before we get into it, I'm sorry the show's coming to you so late. Usually I like to tape it on a Tuesday or Wednesday. Unfortunately, I've encountered a busy week at both work and home. Pushed it back a little bit for me. Sorry about that, guys. But let's jump right into it. First up is the so-so segments. The stuff that wasn't good, wasn't bad, it was just there. First one I want to talk about is Rob Van Dam versus Alberto Del Rio. I don't know, I've seen these two have good matches, so this just didn't hit for me. I didn't really care about it, unfortunately, and that's kind of why I got on here. And Rob Van Dam is a guy that I've been a fan of for over 20 years now, so just didn't care about the match, to be honest. Which is the same reason the next match was up here. Nikki Bella versus Cameron and Alicia Fox. Weird that they moved Cameron out of the Funkadactyls and put her immediately in another tag team situation. I don't know if it's going to be a long-term team, but at least they were a team for the night. The Nikki thing, punishing her for Brie Bella leaving, I believe it's all going to be just so they can bring Brie back and Brie has a match with Stephanie at SummerSlam or whatever. But it's just getting boring to me. The next thing, and I'm really surprised at this one, was Ric Flair coming out, cutting a promo, talking about the main event for Battleground, which Reigns comes out, then Cena comes out, hands Flair the title, which some are saying means that the big gold belt is now retired, or what has been known as the World Championship for a while is retired, and Cena gave that to Flair as a gift. I think, personally, they would have did more than him just handing it and passing down the ramp as a retirement of that belt. More for Flair, more for Cena, more for the belt. But it could be. Which that led us all into the main event, which was Cena and Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins, Randy Orton, and Kane. Originally it was supposed to be Cena, Reigns, and Ambrose, but we'll talk about a little later why Ambrose wasn't in this match. A kind of a weird match, kind of an awkward ending with Rollins going over the top rope looking like he may have injured his knee. Questions on whether that's a real injury or part of the storyline have been abound all week. I don't know, just something about the match that didn't click. Orton attacking Kane afterwards. The whole night we've seen interviews with Orton, Rollins, and Kane, with Triple H and Stephanie, kind of showing that there is some dissension within the Authority's ranks. But the match itself again, it was just a boring match, to be honest with you, and surprisingly, because there's some good wrestlers in the match, it surprises you when you get boredom out of it. Next up, our bad segments of the week, the stuff I just didn't like at all. First thing we want to talk about is Sheamus versus The Miz. What can I say? I mean, Sheamus' character is so stale that he needs a major rejuvenation, whether that be a heel turn, whether it be a character change, whether that be a more serious Sheamus, a less serious Sheamus, whatever it may be. He's just boring to me. And The Miz, sorry Miz, you work hard and you try your best, but he just doesn't connect with me. I don't care about The Miz as a wrestler, and that's not a knock on the guy. He has his fans, he has people that like him. He works hard. I know he works hard because he's a lot better than he was when he had started. And he's even better now than he was when he got the WrestleMania main event a couple of years back, which is a credit to him. Anybody that got dropped down the card so quickly as he did after that could have just rested on their laurels, said, I have my WrestleMania main event, that's it. But he's worked hard. He just doesn't connect with me. And Miz ends up winning this match with a roll-up. Just, again, two guys that didn't connect. The match was boring to me. Last but not least, in the bad segment, I hate to put it in here, and I hate that all the Diva interactions are going in either the bad or the so-so segments for the night, AJ Lee versus Eva Marie. Eva Marie is a beautiful woman. Very beautiful. She sells posters, she sells magazines, she does a good job on the Total Divas show. She is by no means ready to be a professional wrestler on the level that you need to be on Monday Night Raw. Now, I understand that she got rushed onto the roster, and a lot of it's not her fault. But when you have a wrestler the caliber of AJ Lee wrestling Eva Marie, the glaring difference in talent levels comes through the television, and it comes through as a negative light. And to me, it just made a bad segment altogether. Even with Paige on commentary, who I think is phenomenal on commentary, I think Paige is phenomenal at pretty much anything she does, along with AJ Lee. They're both phenomenal talents. Just, Eva Marie stuck out like a sore thumb. She doesn't belong on the main roster. Not saying that she eventually won't be good enough for the main roster, but she needs some seasoning, some maturation, some development. She came into this going from a model to television within 2 months, and that doesn't work. Now, before we get into the good section, we're going to talk about our question of the week. Question of the week from last week, if you remember, Michael Cole was mentioning John Cena being the greatest champion of all time. My question to you was, who do you think the greatest champion of all time was? And we're going to get into some of the answers here. First is from our good friend Dizzle Pup. Hey George, I don't think even WWE believes Cena is the greatest, especially when they have Triple H on their roster still, and he was infinitely better. I have to agree with Cyan Williams, who, actually I didn't print these in order, they came in, sorry. The Rock, Stone Cold were compelling for me, just amazing title runs and pursuits of the title. I'm probably showing my ignorance because a lot of people speak of San Martino as the greatest, but I've never seen him wrestle, so I can't comment. Fair enough. A lot of people, I caught the very tail end of Bruno's career. A lot of you guys that are going to be watching this, and maybe some of you won't, but a lot of us either remember the very tail end of Bruno's career or just know what we know from the stories and maybe searching them on YouTube. Next up is Cyan Williams, who Dizzle and Pup mentioned in his comment. For me, it's a toss-up between The Rock and Stone Cold. I mean, they are both must-see TV. They can wrestle and both have great mic skills, and both are box office. And on a side note, I'm also going to add Bret Hart. He's my favorite. Can't argue really with any of the three. All three of them had very solid runs. Bret was the head of the company for a long time, longer than either Rock or Stone Cold was. Stone Cold and The Rock, you kind of got to put their two careers together because they both mirrored each other so much and faced each other so much that you can't have one without the other. I think they brought greatness out of each other. Next up's from our friend at AUP116. Question of the week is HBK. He's the greatest. I wish we got the 2000s HBK in the 90s or Stone Cold, but I want to state an honorable mention, Randy Orton. If only he had been a 17-time champion with 4 great runs instead of a 10-time with 3 decent runs. But I pick HBK. The Orton answer is very intriguing to me. I believe that Randy Orton's one of the most prototypically gifted wrestlers there's ever been. He's got everything you would need. Much like JBL says, if you made a perfect wrestler in a science lab, it would be Randy Orton. He has all of that. The problem with Randy Orton is they've stuck him in some bad, horrible things once he becomes champion. They made him a pussy. This past run was terrible. The whole run, he didn't have a clean win. A lot of his championships he's been protected by others, or they've been short, or they just use him as a transitional guy. So I definitely agree. Randy Orton is better than he's been treated once he's become champion. Some people are. It just works out that way. And last but not least, from our friend Benjamin Me, Hey Heel Heat, for this week's question of the week, I think Stone Cold Steve Austin was the greatest WWE champion of all time. He sold more merchandise, pay-per-views, and ratings than anyone else over a 5-year period. And WWE acknowledges that the Attitude Era began when Austin won his first title and ended upon his retirement. I also think Bret Hart should be mentioned, as he was a change from the 5-minute poses in the ring, Hogan, to the wrestling-based style and athletic and entertaining matches. I'd also like to say Chris Jericho. I think he was an underrated, underused champion, particularly after WrestleMania 19. Jericho can do anything with anyone. I feel it was wrong to keep him down, as they did not. And also Macho Man, obviously. So a good range of people. Macho Man, dead on with you, brother. I love Macho Man Randy Savage. Jericho, great wrestler as well. Consensus here seems to be somewhere between Stone Cold and The Rock, which I'm not knocking either guy. Both great world champions. Now, when I thought about this, there were two people that came in my mind automatically. A WWF champion, Bruno Sammartino, and the WWF champion, Hulk Hogan. Now, Bruno is the guy the company's back is built on. Without the stuff that Bruno did from the 60s, 70s, and even into the little bit of the 80s, there is no WWE. Bruno made the New York area, which at the time it was a regional promotion, one of the hottest promotions in the world. Basically, you had all little promotions for everybody that doesn't know, and I'm sure most of you do. The whole country had their own little promotions. You'd have one here, 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 everywhere. Well, the three big ones, you had Georgia Championship Wrestling, the Jim Crockett area, where you'd have guys, that's basically where the NWA Championship and the NWA Championship would go all around the United States. Guys like Harley Race, Terry Funk, Dory Funk, Jack Briscoe controlled that. Then you had the AWA, which you had guys like Vern Gagne and Nick Bockwinkel controlling their championship. While they're doing that, the place where you made the most money, according to all the old-timers in the New York area, had this guy named Bruno Sammartino, who sold out the Madison Square Garden more than anybody else, who brought asses to the seats, laid the foundation for what we have today as basically the biggest wrestling company in the history of the business. So Bruno, to me, is a solid number 2. Maybe even a 1A. But the number 1 guy, when I think of the WWE or WWF World Champion, because it's the same company, is Hulk Hogan. Never been a Hulk Hogan fan, wasn't a Hulkamaniac growing up. Didn't like him as Hollywood Hulk Hogan, I thought it was okay. But the guy, for everything that he's done negatively in professional wrestling, and a lot of the last 15 years of his career have had a negative impact, the guy is the guy that took professional wrestling out of 200-seat smoke-filled bingo halls and armories, civic centers, and brought it into 20,000, 30,000, 100,000 seat arenas. Took small promotion, made it a nationwide, worldwide entity. He's the guy that made the WWF what it is. Him and Vince McMahon. He was the figurehead, the face of the company, the guy that, even if you've never watched professional wrestling, you know who Hulk Hogan is. And the same could be said about The Rock and Stone Cold. To me, though, Hulk Hogan did it longer and grew the business so much that he has to be the guy that you would consider the greatest WWE champion of all time, in my opinion. I could be wrong. No, he's not the greatest in ring. No, he didn't create the greatest promos. Definitely not. Shawn Michaels is better than him in the ring. The Rock was better than him on the mic. Stone Cold was better than him on the mic. Tons of other guys are way better than him in the ring. But no one can deny the impact that Hulk Hogan made on wrestling. Now we're going to go with a similar question of the week for next week. Seeing as they potentially retired the big gold belt, what is your favorite title belt design? Now it doesn't have to be a WWE belt, doesn't even have to be a world belt. If you think something like the WCW TV title is the coolest belt of all time, let us know that. But let us know what you think, what the best belt design in your opinion is. Hit us up on Facebook, hit us up on Twitter, put it down where? Down there in the comments. We're going to roll right into the good segments of the week, the stuff I actually liked. The beginning promo with Cena and Reigns kind of having a pissing contest. Ambrose telling them we need to be on the same page on the monitor. Ambrose gets attacked by Kane, Randy Orton, and Seth Rollins, thus knocking him out of the main event. I thought it was a good promo, good way to set up the main event for the night, get things going. Next up, we had Dolph Ziggler versus Fandango, continuing their feud. I thought it was a good match. I thought the distraction of Layla and Summer to Fandango kind of paid off because of his distractions that have won him matches against Ziggler over the past couple weeks. And I thought it was a good way to pay him back. And then at the end, when Ziggler leaves with both Layla and Summer, I thought Fandango's facials were priceless on that. Now following that, we had a match that was supposed to be the Uso brothers versus Luke Harper and Eric Rowan. But Luke and Eric jumped the Usos before the match, destroy them, thus showing us why they are a serious threat to the tag titles this weekend. I liked it. I thought it was cool. I thought it was a good way not to have these guys wrestle match number 5,384, but leave something for the pay-per-view. Next up, we had the Great Detente, which is what they called it. Rusev and Lana against Zeb Coulter and Jack Swagger. This was an amazing piece of business. Zeb Coulter did his thing and kept the heat going. Lana stepped her game up, and she became more than just a pretty face with an amazing ass and a great set of legs. She took that crowd and brought them into a fever pitch of hatred for her. She brought out the venom. She brought out the heat. The crowd was so hot for this segment, booing her, cheering for Swagger, cheering for Zeb. The whole thing was a masterpiece of how you get a guy like Rusev, who I personally think has been struggling to get over, how you get him over as a heel using Lana as the mouthpiece against a guy that you're trying to get over as a face in Swagger and also Zeb Coulter. I thought it was a great segment. I thought it was one of the best moments on Monday Night Raw, probably the best if you ask me. But just all in all, a good segment to me. Coming off of that, we had our match with Cesaro. Surprisingly, Paul Heyman not there with him. No explanation as to why, although the announcer speculated. We did see Paul later in the night by himself talking to the authorities, so who knows what or why they're doing it. Rumor is it's so Paul could be with Lesnar when Lesnar comes back, but why can't Heyman be with two guys? Makes no sense to me. Cesaro versus Big E. Big E picks up the win. He had his friend Kofi Kingston on the outside. Kofi stops Cesaro from cheating, which gives Big E the advantage. Overall, a good match. I think these two matched up well. I kind of like the feud that Cesaro is going in with both Big E and Kofi, and him losing. I think it's going to lead to bigger and bigger things, which leads up into the segment with Y2J, Chris Jericho, and the Wyatt family segment. Thought it was brilliant. Anytime you get these four entities in together, I think Jericho is going to give so much credibility to the Wyatts, so much that they need to grow on with a guy who, even as we've seen, is considered one of the greats of all time. I thought it was brilliant stuff. And last but not least, I kind of teeter-tottered on putting this in the bad or the good segment. The good is, it was Bo Dallas and a Bo Dallas segment, and Bo Dallas did great. The bad was his opponent was a Great Khali, who can't even walk at this point. The match was terrible. Bo Dallas's character shined through and was excellent doing his thing. After the match, Khali hits him with a chop on the outside. Just, the Bo character to me is so good that he took something that could have been a horrible train wreck and made me enjoy it. And that's what put it in the good segment instead of the bad, even though I'm tempted to put anything Great Khali does into the bad segment. Now, coming off of that, speaking of Khali, we're going to go into our ratings. Now, if you've seen our show before, you know we have a 1 to 5 scale. 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. 1's a Great Khali, 2's a Heath Slater, 3's a Stardust, 4's a Cesaro, 5 is a Daniel Bryan. I'm going to give this show a 2, a Heath Slater. It left a lot to be desired, in my opinion. A lot of boring stuff on the show. It didn't properly hype me for the pay-per-view Battleground, which is less than a week. A couple days from now, at this point, less than a week from when the show aired. To me, they dropped the ball on a lot of things, and there was a lot of stuff. The main event felt like it was out of place. There was a lot of stuff that just didn't hit on all cylinders. But overall, I give it a 2, give it a Heath Slater, but basically that's all I have to say about that. My name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of Heel Heat.